Underscoring this whole decade plus was that I needed my own identity. Like I needed my own reputation. I needed to make my own mark on the world that was separate and apart from my family. And I had done it. Pandemic hits. I have a 3-week-old, a 2-year-old, and a 3-year-old. No childcare. It's a disaster.
I have wanted to do this episode for years. You embody like a huge part of our audience, I feel like, where it's like you had a non-linear path. You're one of the most impressive people that I know. I'm super excited to get into your story because it's like multifaceted in every single way. But I was talking to Kendall on your team earlier, but to watch you just navigate the many roles that you play from like, I mean, it's awesome. Welcome to Work Friends.
I'm going to start by crying.
Told you we're a heavy-hitting journalist here.
It's a heavy show. No, that's so kind. Thank you. That really means a lot coming from you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's all true. It's all true and it's all warranted. Before we get into anything, I want to hear about your biggest oh no moment in the past week. What's gone absolutely sideways and how did you handle it? That's our icebreaker here at Work Friends.
Well, it happened on the way here.
Oh, perfect.
Maybe give me another hour, I'll have a worse one. But I came in this morning and thought if I have to get my roots done, I'll certainly do them before this show and come in looking like, like nice and coiffed and glammed, running a little behind. So I'm like running out the door, run to go wash my hands before I leave. And the hose from the sink was still attached and it went straight up into my face. And the water just smacked me so hard, like fully drowned rat. This is, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes ago. And my brain was so confused because I thought I was gonna feel water on my hands and I felt nothing. So I didn't even react. Like I just stood there like with my eyes open. The water like went into my eyeballs. It was like, oh! So we did a quick redo and I made it. But a little bit late, which I also hate being late, so I apologize.
I was late today, so you weren't late. You and I got here around the same time. I beat you by a few minutes, so you'll never know. But I can't believe you haven't even told me that. This is my first time hearing this story.
Yes, this is breaking news.
You also look
breaking
great.
News. You know what? She's real fast. We've been working together for a long time.
But mentally, where did you go? Like, how did you handle it?
I panicked for a second, and then honestly just had to laugh about it.
Yeah.
I was like, this is so ridiculous. Like in no world could I have budgeted this into my let's make a backup plan for that. Like there was no plan for that. And all I could do was laugh about it and ask how long we had to go at the end in case I was insanely late.
But also stakes couldn't be lower. Like we can start late. We can start late, And for those of us listening and not watching, you look great.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we're gonna start at the beginning. You grew up in New York City.
Yep. I grew up here in the city.
What stands out about growing up in the city and what makes it unique? Tell us about the experience of growing up here.
You're exposed to a lot and you're sheltered from a lot.
Oh.
That you see a lot, like you can see the arts, you can see all different kinds of people, like at very close proximity as you wouldn't in a city if it was like a drive-in city or a separated city. So you see a lot, but then also you don't have a lot of independence because it's just not safe for kids to be out by themselves. But then when you get it all at once. So the second I could take the subway, I was out in the world. Like there was no in between. I really loved it. I really loved growing up in the city. I loved theater. I loved being able to run down. Sometimes on a Sunday, I would go down and second act a show. It's when you kind of sneak in after intermission and you go see the second act. I loved the energy.
At what age are you let loose on the subway?
Maybe 14.
Wow, okay.
I remember being a little younger than my friends who could drive, who lived in Miami.
So I grew up on a farm, couldn't be more different. But I do think millennials, we talk about the experience a lot of being sent out to go entertain ourselves and then come back for dinner. Do you have that memory? Did you have that experience? That's what you're talking about.
That's not something that's part of growing up in the city.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the sentiment of it.
Yeah.
But no, you weren't sent out to the street to go play.
Yeah, I feel like you and I had then similar upbringings in that it was there were aspects of it where you grow up quickly and there are aspects of it where you grow up slowly, and they're different.
Yeah, they're totally different. Mm-hmm. I think the other thing that was pretty defining about growing up in the city is that I have a lot of family here. and I have a very identifiable last name. So it wasn't just that I had a lot of family here. My mom is one of 7 of her generation, 2 brothers and 4 cousins who are all very close. I have upwards of like 30 to 40 first cousins who are all in the city. It's just me and my sister and our immediate family, but I have a lot of cousins and a lot of aunts and uncles in the city. And people knew us, and they knew a cousin of mine, and they knew about us. And that was also a pretty defined. In some ways, it felt like nice that I could go places and that something might feel familiar. But then as I got to be a teenager, it felt really suffocating.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. To take that then and to segue into career and like what you're thinking about in terms of career and what early influences were. Can you talk through that? Like what you're thinking for yourself?
I mean, honestly, that's one of the most defining features for me when I was thinking about career, is that I just wanted to be myself. Like I just wanted to figure out who I was. I just wanted to find something that was uniquely my own. I wanted to chart my own path. I wanted to see people for me and not just being part of my family. And it was really hard for me to figure that out for a long time. I didn't really click when I was in school, so it made me really rebellious because I felt like I must not be smart. Like none of the feedback that I got told me that I was smart. And I was like, well, if I'm smart, then I don't measure up in this family. And so it just made me really rebellious. And I tended towards the arts because I really loved theater, particularly costume design, but I wasn't talented at all. So I just loved it, but just kind of like floundered for a long time. Like I had this like deep-seated passion to impact something in the world, like to make the world somehow better, but I had no idea how I was gonna do it, mostly because I didn't have the self-confidence to think that I was good or important enough or talented enough to impact the world.
Wait, can we talk about the feeling of not being talented around costume design and your creative? Like, is that because you're in a family that is elevating business or law or more traditional like forms of work, and you think that this is like a less than form of work, or is it because you haven't had the experience or the feedback loop of like getting to exercise that like creative?
So yes, and I think it was all of those things. I think growing up in New York, things revolve around the finance industry, especially in the world that we were in. So that was the most highly valued form of work. I definitely didn't fit in there. I did tend towards theater, especially costume design, but I wasn't good at it. I just liked it. It was just like the next best thing.
But why do you say you weren't good?
Well, I was objectively not good at theater.
Oh, like okay. But at the costume part, I feel like that is in you.
Yeah, I mean, it's in me. Like, I like expressing myself. I like dressing up. I like being flamboyant. But I'll give you the perfect example of how I ended up not a costume design major in college. I almost went to art school. I ended up going to a small liberal arts college where I could major in costume design. My first semester, I was in a costuming class, and I was sewing the costumes for, I can't remember what the main show was, but it had very elaborate costumes, and I'm in the shop, and I'm chatting, go right through, the sewing machine goes right through my finger. So the needle goes down into my finger, up, and I pull it out. So I have a sewing machine needle in my finger, and I was like, fuck. So they take me to the emergency room, and I remember being like, well, I gotta get this needle out. And then said, well, we could do this way or this way. Clearly medical was not my forte. And I said, well, do whichever way is faster, because Ross Perot is coming to speak at the school, and I really don't want to miss it. So that is in fact what they did. They pulled it out, and I went back to school to go see Ross Perot speak, because I really wanted to see what he had to say, which is like a bit of foreshadowing into my later political career. But I mean, I couldn't even sew without sewing my finger. So when you say, how was I not good at it? Like in every way I was not good at it. It just felt like a way to express myself. It was like the first way that I felt I could express myself.
I do know you eventually go on to get a law degree, but where does that take you from I'm in art school and I want to be a costume designer to I'm actually not good at this?
There were very many dips before I eventually went to law school. So I ended up as a social work major in college. I worked with adults with developmental disabilities. I was there almost full-time. By the end of school, I was in like a full-time placement there. And it was really the only thing that clicked for me. Like truly nothing about being in an academic environment gives me positive feedback. Like it just doesn't. I can't sit. I can't read in the order they want. I can't speak in the order they want. So again, I partied a lot in college, almost failed out of school. we did a lobby day where we went up to our state capitol to lobby for things for undergraduate social work. I don't even remember what it was. I think it was like licensing of undergraduate social work. And in that lobby day, something like clicked in me. I was like, oh, this is amazing. We can possibly make change. And I thought, well, maybe I should be a lawyer. Maybe I can do that. And so I went back, and the advisor was not particularly supportive of me. And I remember saying to her, I'm thinking about going to law school. And she said, Emily, you're never going to be able to go to law school. You're not smart enough to go to law school. Lindsay over there, I've never forgotten her name is Lindsay. I don't know her last name anymore. She is someone who could go to law school. The only reason you're here is because you bought your way into this school.
Stop.
Yes. And it was my greatest fear. And it deterred me it reinforced that I really was not smart and was not capable. So I just kind of let go of it. Like, I let go of the dream of being able to go to law school. I thought that's for the smart people. When I graduated college, I was very passionate about, I didn't know what change the world was. Like, I didn't know what it was gonna look like, but I knew something had to change. We were going into a presidential election year in 2004 when I graduated college. I really didn't want Bush to get reelected, so I just picked up and I moved to the nearest swing state. So I went to Pennsylvania, got the address for the Pennsylvania headquarters. Someone knew someone who knew someone. I got their name. I walked in to the John Kerry's presidential campaign office. I sat down at the desk and I said, well, I'm here to do anything you need me to do. And so at first, I just sat at this desk and I sat next to this other person who had done something similar, and we're both just like filing stuff. We don't know what we're doing. By the end of the first day, maybe the third day, one of the executives on the campaign pulled me and he was like, start taking dictation and start doing my schedule. And I was like, sure, it sounds great. So I just started writing it down. And he seemed like a little nuts, but I was kind of okay with it. I was like, this is exhilarating. I am doing so well. This is incredible. One day I tried to leave at 7 o'clock and he yelled at me for leaving early. He's like, where do you think you're going? It's like, we're still working. I was like, oh, that's actually fine for me. Like, I have a lot of energy. It's actually fine. But no one ever told me this could happen. He was the director of surrogates for the state of Pennsylvania, and he had gone through 6 assistants in the last few weeks. I was his 7th assistant. I stayed his assistant for the entire rest of the campaign. He kept adding staff under me, and so I ended up with, I think, 22 schedulers under me. I was the deputy director a couple months out of college. I would run the morning meeting for the state, and it was the first time that I ever had positive reinforcement in any kind of work scenario. I was like, I am good at this? And it was all these things that made me good in that setting that I hadn't known were skills. Like, I could manage 22 schedulers at the same time. I could keep cohesion in our office. I could move things forward. I could work long hours. I never knew those things were valuable skills. I just thought they were part of my personality.
Well, I also, and we share this, think that your undergrad experience shaped a lot of your like soft skills and your social skills, which to me are my greatest asset. Like, it was the same undergrad experience where it's really about charting your own path, though, outside of the constraints of home life and everyone you grew up with. Like, you're going out on your own for the first time. But I think figuring out how to navigate that, and like for me, like being social was like where I was learning, and in the classroom I was really, just keeping that C average. But I do think that that's like what we're missing now. We have so much pressure that we're putting on kids. And they have all the opportunities in the world, but we're putting them in like college courses at the age of 16, and they're growing up too quickly. And I think when you compromise those soft skills, like we're starting to see the repercussions of that. But I think that like your undergrad experience actually lends itself well to where you landed, I think, for scheduling and stuff.
I do think so. I mean, it was very hard to go through, and at the time, I really didn't know how it was going to end. Like, I really wasn't like, oh, these are my paths to becoming successful. It was like, I am a disaster. I just got to keep going one day after the other, and I don't regret any of it. Like, I in some ways, I wish it was like a little less hard, but I wouldn't have the skills that I have now, to your point, or the mindset that I have now if I hadn't gone through it.
Okay, so what did the path to law school look like then? So you're in Pennsylvania.
We lost the election, which if you work on a campaign, that means that nobody has a job. Like, everybody has left their job to come work on this campaign. So not only are there no jobs, no one you know has a job to help you get a job. So everyone just sort of stays in the state for a little while and drinks, and then you all sort of eventually dissipate and drink somewhere else. But one of the things that I had noticed on the campaign is I kept holding lawyers, like going to law school, as like the pinnacle. Like that is the smartest, best thing that you can do, way to change the world. And so many people that I had met on the campaign were lawyers. And I thought I was smarter than at least some of them. Like at least just as smart.
For sure.
And I was like, that idiot's a lawyer? Like I can definitely go to law school if they can do it. He can do it, let's be honest. And so I was like trying to figure it out, you know, what I was going to do next. Like I really didn't know because I was like, oh, I just woke up to being good at things and I just found the thing that I'm good at and now there's no more jobs. Like it's working on a campaign and there's no jobs. So I was very close to my grandparents, so I went back to New York where my family is, where my grandparents were, and started studying for the LSATs immediately to be able to apply to law school, like basically almost off cycle. I had terrible grades. I didn't know if I would get in. It turns out I'm an excellent test taker and started testing. Yeah, I tested. Now I'm not going to remember the numbers, but I did extremely well in the LSATs, like almost aced it. And so my law school, I went to Cardozo Law because they had a joint degree in a master's in social work and law. I got in off cycle. They basically like let me in off the wait list when someone dropped out. And I remember I called my grandfather and I was so excited to tell him because like he was so worried. I'm the oldest grandchild. I'm his oldest grandchild. He was so worried about me, like that I wasn't going to find the thing. And I was so proud and excited to tell him that I got in. And he had a brain tumor, so he wasn't like processing everything. And he was like, that's good. And he thought that he hung up, and he hadn't hung up. And he looked at my grandmother and he said, I never thought she could do it, and she's gonna do it. And that just meant the world. Like that meant everything to me. Like I wanted to show to them that like I could do it. Mm-hmm. And like I didn't even need him to see me graduate, which he obviously didn't do. But just the fact that he knew that I like pulled it together, that was like all I needed.
Oh, it's incredible.
So I started law school right away.
Were your sights set on a specific job coming out of law school? And I'm guessing the answer is no, but you've just seen it modeled and...
I had no idea. I really wanted to think about I spent a lot of time in school. First of all, when I do things, I do it intensely.
Yeah.
So when I was in college, I was doing partying intensely.
Yes.
I got to law school and was like, oh, I got to do this intensely. So I buckled down. Like I studied every second of every day. I thought about the law. I lived like I was a crazy person. I ended up graduating in the top 5% of my class. I passed the bar in the top 2% nationally. By the way, the test you only have to pass by 1 point. Like I went like above and beyond. Yeah. So I went hard on into law. And I was always no fun at all. And I was always thinking to myself, like, what am I going to do? Like, why am I doing this? Like, what should I be focusing on? What am I going to do with this degree? Like, I don't know that I'm going to be a practicing attorney, but maybe I should be. And there was many areas that I really cared about. Like, I really cared about abortion rights, and I really cared about voting rights, and empowering people to different degrees. But when it comes to abortion rights, those were now the legal situation is different. But that was about enforcing the laws under Roe v. Wade. When I thought about voting rights, that was about enforcing the Voting Rights Act. I think probably another part of growing up in New York in the 80s and the 90s is that my grandmother was one of the very early HIV/AIDS activists. She always had gay friends, and she volunteered at the call center when it was called, before it was the Gay Men's Health Crisis, when it was called gay cancer. My grandmother did that phone operator. She always had gay friends. And so I thought to myself, like, well, what am I skilled at? I'm good at seeing white space and creating pathways through it. So if I'm looking at this landscape of issues and rights that I care about, and these rights that I care about, the practice in that is enforcing the law that already exists, I actually think I can be over here in the place that's white space and creating the pathway. So I ended up with a double concentration, so essentially did 2 concentrations in law, 1 in constitutional law, 1 in family matrimonial law, to be able to get to this idea of building a practice around LGBT families. Like, what is the legal underpinning under constitutional law? What laws exist in family law? By the end of law school, I had taken so many classes in that practice that I took a class called Human human sexuality and gender in the law. And I couldn't possibly do anything more in families. I'd like beat it to death. So I thought, what else seems interesting? I remembered back to my friend that had sat next to me at the Kerry campaign. He was a JAG attorney who had just come back from Iraq. So he was a lawyer in the Army, and it was my first exposure to anyone in the military. And I'd stayed connected to him. When I was in law school, he was elected to Congress as the first Iraq war vet in Congress.
Wow.
So I thought, oh, well, that's sort of interesting. Let me figure out like what the military does. Like, how does the military handle different sexual orientations? And like our law at the time was Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which was the most discriminatory federal law that we had because it mandated firing someone because of who they are. And I thought, that's interesting. Let me see what other countries have done. So I did like a big study on comparing different countries and their integrations in the law in their militaries.
While you were in law school?
Yeah, that was the kind of capstone piece of work that I did for law school.
Wow. So then you come out of law school, you go back into politics.
Straight to the Obama campaign.
Right. Well, okay. Do you know? And I figured I would learn a lot about this, and I'm sure we talked about it. But like, we're so similar. I know but like, same undergrad experience. I almost went and drove around for Obama. Instead, I went into banking, but that was like
very similar paths.
So like, well, yeah, right. But like, I was so close to doing what you did in 04. Yeah. Like, I almost did exactly that, where you just sort of like blindly go into this world and just hope for the best. But I think like the key takeaway so far from your experience is like, I'm just going to keep learning. Yeah. And there's no downside in that. And I don't know where I'm going, but like, I have confidence that if I just keep building on my skill set, it will land somewhere. At the time, I didn't
know it was confidence. At the time, I just did it.
Yeah.
I've never had like a ton of regret. Like, I think I just learn from everything that I do, and I'm not afraid to try something new or take chances or like go into a new scenario. So I knew like one person on the Obama campaign in Pennsylvania because I had known them from the Kerry campaign, showed back up, ended up working in voter protection. I was like, well, I'm a lawyer now. I should do lawyer stuff. Voter protection is like essentially the same as the work I had done before, but you do it with lawyers.
But with a law degree.
I was like, thank God, I spent the last 3 years doing this. And that actually, I think, was also a great lesson for me, that you can move through different parts of a campaign and like different parts of jobs, and they might have different contexts, but it's the same work.
Oh, yeah.
It's the same stuff.
And like nobody knows, and you're great. Like, you just don't allow yourself to recognize that like you really deserve to be in the rooms that you're in,
right?
Yeah,
right.
And your point of view matters. Did you take the time to acknowledge the achievement of you're barred in New York? You got barred, didn't you?
Yeah.
Like, did you celebrate that in any capacity, or take time to acknowledge like this counselor told me I couldn't? I've like seen this through. I wish my grandfather was here to see it, but like he would be so proud. Like, are you sitting in that at all, or are you just continuing to push yourself forward?
It's a great question. I was too overwhelmed by it. Like, I was that juxtaposition was too big. So I might have like taken a moment to say like, great, so happy this worked out. Mostly, I can never study for the bar again, so thank God I don't have to, because that was insane. I actually lost my mind when I was studying for the bar. I kept showering in my clothes.
No.
Yes. I had to do the exact same thing every single day.
Wait, like an athlete thing, like a superstition? Is that why? Or like you were just so out of your mind that like
No, I had just like lost my mind. Like, I had to do the exact same thing every day, so that the only variance in my brain was like new information that I was processing. And so every single day I'd put on the same workout clothes, and I would go to the gym, and I would walk on the treadmill, I think for maybe an hour or 2 hours, when I would study the hardest section for me, because if my feet were moving, then my brain could be like a little more freed up. And then I would only wash it like once a week. And then I started to smell by the end. So I was like, well, what's the only natural thing that I can do? Shower in my clothes. No, I lost my mind when I took the bar.
All right, so you go to the Obama campaign. Were you always politically engaged? I know you talked about the Ross Perot piece, but was this your whole childhood too? Like, was there a piece of you that was paying attention to politics and intrigued? Did you have exposure?
Not politics per se. I'd say more just awareness of the world and my responsibility in it. That like, if I was born into so much, then I have an obligation to make the world better for others.
Yeah, that's a nice perspective. And then going back in, you're coming out of law school. Yes, you're now accredited in that way, but like, I imagine these roles are pretty like brutal, right? There's a lot. You're doing everything. You're working around the clock. and you're working against a clock because there's a date that you're working towards for the election.
Yeah.
What's the nitty gritty of like 2.0 and your political experience? You know, what?
Oh, I mean, you can get picked up and moved across the state in an hour's notice, picked up and moved across the country in an hour's notice. The place you get to, there may not be a proper place for you to be sleeping at somebody's basement. Many times I slept on the floor of our office. The ceiling was falling in. There's a picture of me napping in a pile of garbage in my office, but like I'm wearing a button down and pants because I worked with lawyers, so I had to look nice. And I'm like sleeping in like an empty pizza box. Yeah, I mean, you win or you lose. Like there's no, oh, I made it to yoga. Like congratulations, you lost the whole fucking country. So that appealed to me. Like the high stakes appealed to me, and the high intensity of it. I loved the camaraderie of it. I loved working towards something bigger. Everything else falls away when you're trying to do something as important as win an election on that kind of scale. And it felt like we were changing the world. Like it really did. In hindsight now, the world has changed in many ways. But at the time, it felt like nothing else. We should sacrifice everything for this. And we did.
Yeah, that election of our lifetime was one of the most energized, like most hopeful, most optimistic. It did really feel different and special. Now looking back, well,
in some ways, there was a lot of lure around it afterwards in DC. It was like, oh, the Obama campaign was so special. It was so different. Like actually being on the campaign, like it pretty much felt like a campaign. Like campaigns are campaigns.
Well, sure. And I think that like we're about to dip our toe back into that a little bit because there is energy in like the Democratic Party on the extreme end, like which we just saw with the Mamdani, and we don't have to talk about politics, but like I think that we will see that resurface a bit where it's like there's newness, but you have to acknowledge like how to run a good campaign, and like the infrastructure doesn't change.
Like there are some fundamentals
Correct.
of running a campaign. Like you do eventually have to talk to voters. I mean, in voter protection, you identify your priority districts where you think you're going to have the most voters, and then you show up with poll watchers to make sure that all those people get to vote and they're not intimidated, right?
Yeah.
Like, that happens every campaign.
Yeah.
That's not special to Obama
Yeah.
or anybody.
Yeah.
Like that happens every single campaign.
Yeah.
And by the way, some of the things that, we think about like when we, at the time we were thinking about like, we've changed the world now. We are so bonded, having done this together. No one else will ever have gone through what we went through. I also did that personally, where I ended up dating my boss on the campaign, not knowing that he still had a girlfriend at home until he told me at the end of the campaign. Like, and I remember, and I was crushed. Oh my God, I was despondent after the election because he went back to his girlfriend that I didn't know existed.
Does she know you exist?
What a great question. I actually have I worked for him. Like she knew that he moved me across the state with him because I was on his team. But I have no idea. I don't know what she knew. But I was so depressed at the end of it because I was like, well, we just went through this thing together. We just like, what a love story. We changed the world together. Like I'll never have a bond with anybody else like that. And then after time and some space, I realized I could have never ended up with him.
Yeah.
We are really not a match.
Yeah.
But it was the intoxication of the campaign and maybe some sleep deprivedness of it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you're in the trenches together, so you start saying, okay. All right, we're not going to go as linear now. I want to talk about, so you've worked in several high stakes, highly visible roles. So you started appearing on live television.
Yeah.
Pretty regularly.
Yeah.
Do you have any big failures from these early experiences that shaped you in any way or that stand out?
So I started doing Fox News in 2012 with Obama's reelect. I was the president of Young Democrats of America. And one of the big storylines of 2012 was like, will Obama get the young people? Will they deliver for him again? So Fox News called me to start commenting on that. And then I did that segment, and I was like, oh my God, I can kind of do this. And, it's like...
You're great at it.
Oh, thank you. Well, it was like the high pressure, the high intensity, like I'm okay. Like I don't get knocked off. Again, something that I didn't know was a skill in school, but that I learned later on. And so then Fox started calling me to do other election segments. And I remember they said the next segment that I was going to do was, Romney hasn't released his tax returns yet. Will it affect him in the general election? And I was like, I don't know. How would I know that? Nobody knows that. I'm like, well, you just say what you think. I was like, you just say what you think? I don't know how this thing works. This is nuts. What if I get it wrong? And they're like, well, it's like in about a year from now. No one's going to know if you got it wrong in this particular 4 p.m. segment. So I just started saying what I thought. And I did that. I was on TV almost every day for many election cycles, sometimes more than once a day. I didn't have any huge screw ups on stage. I spent a lot of time at Fox News. I got to know their hosts pretty well. They were nice people to me, and then we would go on air and it was like an entirely different person. And then afterwards they would say, great segment, can't wait to have you on again, thank you so much. Like, it was like 2 different people.
Is there any, I wonder if you have this in you, imposter syndrome? I know it comes up a lot and it's a theme with like women in work always, men too, but like, did that ever enter the equation for you?
To be honest, not a ton, because I knew that I could deliver something that a lot of other people couldn't deliver. And other people did doubt that I should be on air doing it.
Who?
The policy experts in that field. So the networks would call me because they knew that I could do the segment. And the way that the bookings work is they ask you for when you're available for the different show. And then maybe an hour or 2 before the show, they tell you your topic for it. So I would have to, I kept up, like in the news every day, like I was deep in all of it, but I would have to go between tariffs to immigration to healthcare policy to the economy to what happened in Iowa's town hall yesterday. Like, I had to go back and forth with them every day. So I had to lean on policy experts to help get me smart, on the specifics, like the hour before I would go on. And there was a lot of jealousy about why Emily being on talking about this topic area when I'm the one who's the expert on it. And I had to manage that. They were my friends. Sometimes they weren't, but sometimes they were. I knew that dynamic was there, but I also knew that I could deliver on air in a way that they could never get the point across.
Agree. Yeah, you're a really effective communicator. I think that's right. A lot of it's such a skill though. It's very hard to, because I've tried to hire for it before. I would say communications is something that's lacking in the hiring pool for me. Just effective communication. It's so critical in business, but especially for journalism and to be on air. Okay, I want to get into She Pivots. And first of all, for those who don't know, it's your podcast you've been doing now for 4 seasons. We're going to the 5th season. Yeah. It's born from your personal journey and personal story, because you have had a lot of pivots. Can you talk about its origin story and what motivated you to bring these conversations that you're having to light?
I had my first kid in 2016, 5 days after Hillary Clinton took the nomination. I was on maternity leave that fall, so I was on air the whole time. Because when I was on maternity leave, obviously I was on air. Mm-hmm. My first day back in the office was the Monday after the election. The think tank that I worked in was referred to the Clinton White House in waiting. It was like death. And I came in determined to prove myself. Like, I had to prove to everyone, including myself, but everyone else too, that I was the same worker that I had been before I had had a kid. So I was like grinding it. Here's the problem. I had another kid 18 months later. And then I had another one 22 months later. So I've now had 3 kids in 3.5 years. And I thought, okay, I'm ready. I had a political podcast at the time. I'm not going to lose my career. I have worked so hard for this career. And I have worked so hard to make my own an identity that is all my own.
Can I ask, sorry to interrupt, but I want to ask a question there. How would you define, like, how would you define your career or your role at that time? Because now at this point, because I've skipped over a lot to be clear, but you've been doing this for like a decade, you know, more than a decade.
Yeah.
So where did you really where did you land, or how would you have defined like your role, your expertise? Because you're both working in politics and participating in these live conversations on the news every other second, you know?
Yeah, funny enough, the media was never the core of my work.
Yeah, no.
It was always just like one extension. The core of my work was campaign design and campaign strategy. So basically the issue on an expert, like a healthcare expert, a climate expert, a guns expert, would come to me and say, this is the next thing I want to happen in my issue area. And I would help them figure out what are the logistical steps that it'll take for that law to go into effect, or not go into effect, or get it into the hands of lawmakers in some way. So that was the core of my work, was like designing campaigns. Then often I would help hire for the campaign manager and then manage them. And then once Trump took office, our job became very different. It was rapid response, responding to the president. So it was figuring out from a policy perspective, how can we say this policy is harmful? It was crazy. Like the time was crazy. He would always drop new policies over Twitter on Friday nights and Saturday mornings. I guess it's when his staff gave him access to his Twitter account. I really don't know. But I was pregnant. I had a baby. I didn't have any childcare on the weekends. And so I was always trying to manage building coalitions and new campaign calls over the weekend, and then would go on TV to talk about it.
I mean, there's just like, this is like an episode in and of itself, but there's so much that you accomplish in that like decade plus. It's so fascinating because you're just pivoting constantly, to be honest, which
Constantly.
take us to she pivots, but like,
No, like 10 times a day. Like I would pivot 10 times a day.
and you found an expertise and you found your footing and you became an expert, and like, it's just, I don't know. It's,
And I designed an expertise.
yeah.
Like that job didn't exist before me.
And you're uniquely equipped for that too. I think you
you.
can see it now, and we'll talk about this and what you're doing now, but like you are able to find white spaces and be really creative and think beyond, I think, the normal confines of like whatever industry you're touching or business. Like you can really zoom out, I think, is your superpower.
I think at that point I had realized that. I had realized that that was where I was strong. So the think tank had hired me on to manage one short campaign, and then I basically just kept pitching myself around the building. So my calendar in a day would, every minute would be packed moving between the healthcare team, the climate team, the guns team, the campaigns team, like moving hour by hour through every one of those campaigns and being able to like switch quickly to what each of them needed. So then I had a third kid going into the 2020 presidential. 3 weeks after my third was born, we went into a global lockdown.
Yeah, 3 kids in 4 years, just to emphasize the point. Okay,
Yeah,
go
3.5 years and a global lockdown. And so I had this vision of how I was gonna be this like super mom and like find a way to consult to the presidential, and like I'm not dead yet. And when I say that I had worked, I was like, no one forget about me. Like I had worked so hard for my reputation and for my job. Like the thing that really had been driving me, like underscoring this whole decade plus, was that I needed my own identity. Like I needed my own reputation. I needed to make my own mark on the world that was separate and apart from my family. And I had done it. Like I had finally started to feel like I was so insecure about it, but I finally started to feel like my reputation is my own. Like people know my work. And pandemic hits. I have a 3-week-old, a 2-year-old, and a 3-year-old. No childcare, out of DC. Like it's a disaster. Like and by the way, I felt no connection to my kids, which I feel like is really important to talk about now, because now I do. So it's okay to talk about it. At the time, I was not comfortable talking about it, but I've never had a connection to babies. I've really never had a connection to kids. And everyone kept saying like, oh, something will just click. And like nothing clicked for me. I found them so annoying. I could like nothing told me how to change a diaper, which I had never done because I'd never babysat, because who would have left their kids with me? Nothing told me how to tell which cry is which. I just knew I wanted it to stop. Like it was so unnatural for me. And so I was stuck. Physically stuck, because we were stuck, locked in on the pandemic, where the thing that made me feel like me was working, and that was inaccessible to me. I wasn't taking a step back to spend time with my kids. I was reviled by them and was very resentful of them for taking me away from the thing that I felt comfortable doing. And I was totally uncomfortable with everything I was doing with them. And everything in the cultural commentary was around like taking a step back, like choosing to spend more time with your kids. And it pissed me off to no end. I was like, but I didn't choose this. Like my whole industry rejected me. Nothing about this I chose. And I want that validated in some way. I had a political podcast at the time. I ended it to give me like a little more space to think about how I would find myself in the next phase, because it was so clear that like the rapid response political part of my life was just over. Like I didn't know if I'd ever get it back again, probably not. But to be at the intersection of politics and media, both, you have to really be in the room.
Yeah, and you're saying too, because I mean, just having 3 kids, having kids, period, just changes you. It changes your bandwidth. It changes everything. Is that part of the reason? Like you didn't have...
Yeah, but I feel like talking about bandwidth is like something I can talk about in a space of sanity. Like there was no sanity in that moment.
Yeah.
It was just like chaos and crying, them and me, and then them again, and then me again. Like there was nothing reasonable around it. Like how would I have a conversation with someone? I remember the one time I tried to get on some sort of like Zoom call and I left my husband with all 3 kids. My son fell off a high chair onto a stone floor and they thought he had to go into emergency brain surgery. And we took him to that hospital attached to the prison. It was an actual nightmare. And I was like, well, that was me trying to get on one work call.
Yeah, totally.
And I just felt so lost. Like I couldn't have introduced myself to someone if I had to, which I didn't have to at the time, but I couldn't have because I didn't know how I would introduce myself. I didn't know who I was. I felt so without value.
Wow. Yeah.
Because I had value and I had built it. Like I had worked so hard for it and it just didn't exist anymore. So now I was nothing. I was a bad mom. Like what was I?
I mean, it's so powerful to hear you speak on this because like you're changing chemically, like you are changing when you have children. They're like hormones are all over the place. For me, after Charlie, I was like, I just never want to re-enter society. This is what I'll do. And after a few months, I was like, get me out, give me work, give me something to keep me sane because I found my value from work too.
Yeah.
And then Ruth was colicky, so like a very similar experience where you're just like, I don't just make it stop crying.
Yeah,
you know?
like you're nothing if your kid is colicky.
But yeah, it's so interesting to hear you speak on this because I think that is the reality that so many women go through and are like forced to just keep moving forward, but don't have the support of society at all, and like no understanding and no grace and no anything. You know, everything's changing all at once.
Right. Like I hated breastfeeding. I hated it, and everything told me that if I was going to be a good mom and if I wasn't working because I was home with my kids, then I should spend all of my time like a cow. And I just kept believing it because I didn't know what else to do.
I mean, we talked about failure earlier, but I would say that this is like probably where you're feeling like a failure. And I think a lot of us do, where like I'm failing at everything that's on my plate at this point, you know?
Everything. And the things that would have given me positive reinforcement were unavailable to me. So I started to think about like, what do I need to get myself out of this? And I needed to hear other women's stories. Like I needed to hear stories that inspired me to feel like I wasn't totally dead. But I didn't want to hear other stories of other moms because I think I was sort of embarrassed about that identity still of being like, oh my God, motherhood threw me off. I was like, boring, everyone does it. Do it, Emily. Like, put your big girl panties on, you know? So that I didn't identify with that. And then also, I needed to hear something worse, to be honest with you. I was like, I want to hear the, quite frankly, most fucked up thing I could think of and know that she got out on the other side of it. And then there was conversation around resilience when I started having this conversation, and I really resented that because I was like, resilience implies that I'll go back to the same. I am so fundamentally different. I will never be the same. I couldn't possibly go back to the same. But I don't want to know that all of this that I've gone through was for nothing. Like I have to know that it is for something. I don't know what it's for yet, but I have to know it was for something. So I started this idea of She Pivots thinking that, I spent my whole career working on legislative change. I change laws. Other people change culture. I change laws. And I thought, what if I can move culture a little bit? And when I worked in policy, it was always about big, the most number of people impacted, the biggest area. What if I make it really, really small, like as small as possible, and I tell an individual story and focus on their humanity and try to cut out everything else? Might that change culture? Like if we identify with just one person? So I started the show as a 10 episode series to see like, how do I do this? Do I like doing it? Does this feel worth my time? And because I have this piece of me like has to do it, if I'm gonna do it, I have to like really do it. It's like, well, I can't just like turn on my Zoom and do it. Like I have to like really do it. So I pitched every media outlet I possibly could. I ended up being the first podcast for Marie Claire magazine, so they launched the show for me. I had a column in the magazine and became a contributing editor. Over time, increased my work with the magazine, so I was doing like 90% of the business content for them. I hosted their show as well as my show, and just started telling the stories of women who had been through something. The formula has always stayed the same, actually. It's women who have been through something very deeply personal. Like first they had a career, like an established career. I don't want some like I'm losing myself at 19, right? Like I have like an established career. They go through something that is deeply personal, what I call like the intervening life event, something that is outside of themselves for the most part, but changes them so fundamentally that it totally changes their perspective. And then building upon the first career and the intervening life event, they come to something that is totally different, something they never could have come up with had it not been for all this that they had gone through beforehand. So some things have always stayed the same. In my show, we've done like about 130 interviews now.
Wow.
For She Pivots. The formula has stayed the same. The focus on one story and really focusing in on their humanity has stayed the same. Interviewing all women has stayed the same. The thing that changed was my confidence in it and my confidence being the interviewer and at the center of it. If you go back and listen to the first season, you barely hear my voice because I just focused the edit just on the guest. I didn't think that anybody wanted to hear anything from me. Like I was so embarrassed about how hard it was for me that I didn't think that anybody would want to hear my story. So you barely hear my voice. And it wasn't until the second season that I was like, you know what? In all these interviews that I do, the guest says, you know, I gave up something today that I have never said before publicly. Like I shared something about myself and I was like, oh, well maybe that means that I'm worthy of being in my own show.
100%. There's like no one, but I mean, I listen to your podcast and everyone should. You are so talented at that. But I think it is born from you building that muscle, over your career, from being on live television to then having this very personal experience. So you have like something, I think, you're identifying something in your guests that like other interviewers can't necessarily from your own lived experience, And I think you've danced around a little bit, but so many of us tie our value to our job.
Yeah.
And I think that you have already answered this through sharing your experience, but was that part of your experience during the early days of your kids? And did you struggle to let go of, the previous chapter of your career as you're moving into starting a podcast and trying to envision what's next?
During all of my days, I tie my value to my career. I don't know that I will ever be able to detach myself in that way. Even when I was like one season into She Pivots, 2 seasons, I was like, but is this real enough for it to be my identity? Is this real enough for it to be my job? When I was in politics, very clear definition of success in politics. It was win-lose if you're on a campaign, or when I was in a job, it was compensation. It was title. It was what meetings do you get invited to? What information are you included in? Oh, that was a huge one. It was where is your desk located in the building, right? Like those were incredibly clear markers of how I was doing. Now, I don't have any markers like that. I have to change my version of success for myself. Do I find it gratifying? Do I feel like it's moving the needle? It's moving the needle so slowly. Does it matter? And does that matter to me? Do I get to drop my kids off at school in the morning and pick them up in the afternoon? Like those are the markers of success for me now.
Yeah.
But it has to change for everyone, and it's such a personal question.
Yeah, and I think to have to go on that journey when you're at the height of postpartum is like incredibly challenging too. Trying to figure out like what does my future look like, and I'm laying this chapter of my career to rest, and like I'm moving into this new chapter, and yours is layered too. It's not just She Pivots that you're doing. I imagine that you're getting called, even with newborns, all the time for people wanting to access your experience,
people wanting to talk through advice. Yeah. We do it a lot.
I think what's so funny is that you don't just start a podcast, you start a podcast with Marie Claire, which like when you talk about how you go all in on things, like that's so casual to you, maybe because you grew up in New York and because your like benchmark is just up, like top tier 1.
Yeah.
But you and I met, I think because of we met at the Marie Claire we actually met before that, but we really met at Marie Claire at the Power Trip.
Yeah.
And that's not casual. Like I think that you even throw it in there as an aside, but like that's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's my blessing and my curse, right? That like when I was younger, the standard was so high that if I attempted something and couldn't do it the best, then it totally derailed me and it turned into like really negative for me, and I just had to feel like I had to opt out. Now, if I set a goal for something, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to do it the best, and I'm going to not take no for an answer and push until we get there. Like, we're not going to do it the first time. We're not going to do it the second time. We're not going to do it the third time. Nothing is going to end up the exact way I envisioned it the first way. Nothing will. But we're going to get there.
She Pivots launches very successfully and is still going. Now you're layering on top of that, I feel like, right? So
Yeah.
that's one of the many jobs that you now have. When does the opportunity to get involved with Gotham enter the equation, and what has that involvement looked like? Because it has evolved for you a bit over the years, right?
Quite a lot. Okay, so Gotham's kind of a crazy story. When I was going through this whole 3-kid change my career, my sister was actually going through the same 3-kid. It changed her career. So my sister had been the head of global marketing at Peloton as a startup. So she really built the brand. Left during COVID because she had her 3rd kid. Since I was 9 years old, my family has owned half the New York Giants. So being part of the business of sports is something that we grew up in. It's something my sister always wanted to be involved with. It's something I never wanted to be involved with. As you can hear, I did literally everything else except for trying to be involved with sports. But one of the things my sister noticed was that a lot of other owners in different leagues were figuring out how to leverage their teams and leverage their position in teams to build out sports portfolios. So my sister built a sports-focused VC called Next3 that essentially just leverages our position and our knowledge from the Giants for other sports investments, not just teams, but sports investments broadly. She stood it up, did a couple of deals, and said, look, the biggest opportunity is in women's sports. This, by the way, this is 2022 and a half, 2023, which is a whole different world than where we are right now. Like this, what I'm going to say now sounds obvious. Not obvious, just in 2023. The biggest opportunity is in women's sports. The biggest undervalued assets is women's soccer in particular. None of us really grew up with soccer. But she's like, this is where the opportunity is. So she had gone around meeting with all the different teams. They're all raising money. And someone said, well, why, you're the Giants. Like, why don't you buy into Gotham? And she's like, well, is Gotham for sale? And they're like, don't know until you get to try. So my sister had approached the controlling owners of Gotham, and we came in as minority to majority owners and strategic investors, which meant that we could come in at that level quite quickly. So it's me, my sister, and our cousins.
Cool.
We are the ownership group, which is super cool.
Yes.
And
for all parties.
For everyone. With my sister as the lead of our investment group, and also very clearly that because of her operating experience at Peloton, she will be the one leading the investment and overseeing Gotham. Gotham is dead last. 2022 season, Gotham is dead last in the league. Great for valuation. So
Great for valuation for you, for the purchaser.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So she thinks, when is the press ever going to care about a women's soccer team changing hands and ownership? Maybe the week of the championship. Let's set the closing for that week. Surprise to everyone, Gotham is in the championship. She closes the deal on Wednesday, flies to San Diego where the championship is on Thursday. As she lands, the controlling selling owner calls her and says, hi, I know we're supposed to have a multi-year buyout and crossover where you go from minority to majority. And the controlling owner, for personal reasons, I have to step down and you are now the controlling owner. She has landed on the plane to the hotel where the players are. She comes into the lobby, and one of the staffers is there and said, oh, and by the way, the players do not know the team is for sale. So the sale is the first time they have found out they have a new owner, an hour ago. So they walk into the lobby and they said, okay, come on in. You're going to address the players now. And she was like, can I change out of my pajamas from the plane? And they're like, no, everyone's waiting for you. So she walks in, and that is the first time that she meets the players. I arrive the next day, and the CFO, and I'm just there to support my sister, yeah, rah, rah. The CFO comes and grabs me, and she's like, this is really a disaster. We really need help. And I was like, sure, but why tell me? I have nothing to do with this. So we win the championship the next day. There's no celebration planned. There is zero news coverage. We are the New York team. We win the national championship. The only news coverage is the New York Post has a small item that says Megan Rapinoe tears ACL in championship game. Megan Rapinoe played for the opposite team. And we're like, this sucks. Like, we're used to the Giants winning the Super Bowl, and everyone rolls out everything for you. This is terrible. So on the way home, we're scheming. We're like, how do we get coverage? How do we get people to care about the team, people to know about the team? How do we get the players to feel valued? So the first week, 2 weeks, is a scramble. Within 2 weeks, the team president is gone. My sister is now the team president. I end up arranging a party night out for the players because literally no celebration is planned. I rent them a party bus and I said to the girls, I was like, what could make you guys feel celebrated? Like, I don't know what's going on with this whole thing, but like, I want you to feel appreciated. They're like, can you get us a table at a club? And I was like, can you ask for literally anything else? Like, I'm 40.
Or ask me 20 years ago.
Yeah, can you ask me to? I can get you a party bus to get there. I find one club. This is now the only club I continue to send the players to because it's the only one that I can now get them to do. But so it was like day by day, building it up, like really rebuilding the team from the ground up. My sister had to clean house on the business side. In the 2020, so we went through the 2024 season just trying to figure out like what is this thing that we are doing? And also it is my sister's thing and I've got my own thing over here, but in trying to build out the platform for She Pivots, I had exposure to women's lifestyle magazines, to consumer press, to this new era of consumer press, which is mom influencers in New York that I had built out to try to engage in culture change. All of these things are actually now assets that I can bring into the club. So we did that through the 2024 season. The 2025 season, we ended up changing a lot of our roster, a lot of new players coming in. And they themselves really vibed from the beginning. Like, they had a great chemistry from the beginning, and it started to feel like things were clicking. And it started to for us too. And I think even for me, like coming into what is my role going to be in this club? Like, my sister's role is very clear. What is my role going to be? So now I really work at the intersection of Gotham and culture. So I bring culture into Gotham. For the first year, I booked all the national anthem singers. I bring influencers in. I bring cool brands in. I bring cool people in to see the game, to get to know it. Like, once you're there, you get it. You've been to a bunch of games. Like, you really have to go to experience it to understand how friendly and inviting the crowd is, how family friendly it feels, how positive the whole thing feels, how hard the girls work on the field. Like, they are tough, and I love it. And then I also bring Gotham into culture. So we're New York. We're the center of culture. Our players should feel integrated into the culture in New York. And when people think about culture in New York, they should think about Gotham as being part of that. Like, you should not be able to have a cultural event in New York without having Gotham in the room. So some of our players had never even been into the city. Like, they train and live in New Jersey, and they had basically never been into the city until we started providing opportunities for them to come in. So the first thing that I was able to do is that in 2023, after we won the championship, teams get invited to the White House to honor them. It had never happened for women's soccer before, ever. Took me 9 months, but when we do it, we go all the way. So we got a championship event, the first ever for women's soccer, and Argent dressed all of the players. Thank you, Sali.
It was like one of the highlights of the last 10 years for me. I loved it so much. It was so cool, and I actually got to be there and just see what it did for the players, but what it does for little girls around the country, in the world, to just see that kind of elevation. I mean, I think what you have both done, you and Carolyn, is remarkable. And like, I think that you have a superpower that's very entrepreneurial, but you've had to earn their trust too. I think a lot of like the last couple of years is just, it's as with any new relationship and new ownership group, you've had to really get to know the organization and the players. And
yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think that we don't look like traditional sports owners. The league is still pretty mistrustful of authority with good reason, based on past experiences. I think they had to say that we really do what we say we're going to do.
Yeah.
So I started traveling, going to away games, and I take my kids individually. So I take each one of them, so they have their own trip with me. And we go to away games, to most of the away games. And so we got the opportunity to, get to know the players off the field in their downtime. And they got the opportunity to get to know us and to see, like, we really are who we say that we are. So we were in the championship again this year. Our players just, like, they did it. Like, we were the underdog. Nobody believes that we could do it, but we knew. Like, we always knew they could do it. And we won the championship. And I went to the parents' tailgate before the game, and I took fireball shots with Rose Lavelle's mother, and I think Lily Reel's parents too. I don't know, it was a couple. And we made it into the stadium, and we got the celebration that they deserved. We planned the first parade ever for women's soccer in New York. We had the first ever mayor's event. And to see this team, and honestly to see my sister leading this team, like, this is the team that my sister built. This is the team that our family built. And we are champions, was just the most gratifying possible feeling.
Yeah, I also encourage everyone, if they have not, to listen to Carolyn's episode on She Pivots. She's been on twice. The first episode, and it's reminiscent of listening to you talk about your own experience with motherhood, but I was sobbing on a plane listening to it because it's that pressure that you feel to both show up at work and show up for your kids, and it's this like unrealistic set of demands that we put on moms especially. But you guys have a really complementary skill set that I think is on full display with your ownership of Gotham. And I think that you just keep building on what you've already done. You keep improving on, the foundation that's there. And I think that you've done so much for the players and for the organization and for the ownership group, everything, but the sport at large as well. And for women in sports, like, it's just I think they're very lucky to have you. And as a fan, this has been a roller coaster of a season. Yeah. But it's just continuing to open up new opportunities. So now looking into next season, it's like I feel like you've been creating things that are now potentially coming to fruition 2026. It takes that long sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's very exciting. I'm to just witness that.
Right, that's okay. We're in it for the long game.
Totally.
Like, Carolyn sets the goal. Our goal is that we will be the first global brand in women's sports. So there are some global brands that we all understand. Like, you could see the New York Yankees, Dallas Cowboys, Real Madrid. Like, you could see their logos anywhere in the world, and you would recognize it. And that fan may be a diehard fan, but they actually might not know a lot about it. They just like to wear the logo or feel some identification with the team. And there are some individual women, like the Williams sisters, Coco Graf. Like, it's mostly in tennis where there's individual athletes. There's no global brand in women's team sports.
We've talked about so many facets of your career. I could talk to you forever, really, about anything. You do so much, and I feel like we're just scratching the surface here today. Like, I think it's hard to get into all of it because you're also on the board of Swing Left, and you're also, leading Ross School from you're the chairman of the board there. I mean, your plate is more than full too with all that you're doing. Is there anything that you're looking to add to it, or any career goal that you have now, current state?
I think my next chapter is that I want to think of myself as a strategic investor. And I think I really learned it from my sister with running Next 3. But over the years, I've kind of backed myself into being an investor in brands and founders that I care about. And when I go in, I go all in. But I haven't been strategic about the portfolio. And so I think this next phase is that for me. Like, I love She Pivots. It is my passion. It is the place I tell stories, is the place that I hope to change culture. And it's more efficient now. And so it's not 100% of my time. We're with iHeart. They handle so much. And we have a great team. So as I move through whatever the next opportunities are, I want to be thinking about my role in that way more strategically.
It's interesting. I'd love to close this out by asking some advice. What are some questions you think someone should ask themselves if they too are feeling like they need a career pivot today? Are there first steps to making a change, or do you believe in just leaping?
It really depends on the person. For me, I'm a leap kind of gal. Like, I think you have to try something to know. So if you're earlier in your career, I would say take internships. If you're mid-career, I would say take some contract work at like a very reduced rate, start volunteering just to be able to get your foot in the door. Like, you got to try something to know. I think to fully pivot into a new career without giving yourself some language around, your skills, what their needs are, and so that you can fit into the way the new employer and the new industry is thinking about it, I think is really doing yourself a disservice. It's going to fail. Like, it's not going to succeed. So you have to just get in the door a little bit with something at a discounted rate so that you can build a portfolio and knowledge for yourself for the next chapter.
Mm-hmm. Free internships, if you will.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, we've come to the end of our episode, which both makes me sad and excited for my favorite segment of Would You Rather? You ready?
Ready.
Okay.
I'm quite decisive.
Would you rather, which we love, would you rather start work at the crack of dawn or burn the midnight oil?
You have gotten so many 6 a.m. texts from me. I think the answer is crack of dawn.
Would you rather go back to school to learn a new skill or teach what you know to a class of newcomers?
I think I'm kind of doing both all the time, to be honest with you. So that wasn't a very decisive answer.
But if you had to choose one.
But if I had to choose, I like to learn. I'd like to learn.
Same. Would you rather
But not in school. That was a big failure for me.
That was very clear.
Yeah.
On the job. Would you rather work for another presidential administration or lobby for a new piece of legislation?
Ooh. I've never gotten to work in the White House. I want to work in the White House.
Love that.
I'm putting it out there.
2028, here we come. Would you rather only answer emails with emojis or only answer calls on FaceTime?
I would FaceTime.
Mm-hmm, I knew that. I knew it. Same. Would you rather lose all the audio on a podcast recording or lose all your notes right before you head into a recording?
Oh, I often go even without notes sometimes.
Yeah, I 100% notes.
Yeah.
Audio? No.
No, we could never lose the audio. This is magic what's happening in this room.
Would you rather accidentally leave your mic unmuted or your camera on?
Mic unmuted. I do some crazy things when I go off camera.
Really?
Yeah, and it has a lot to do with cleaning my nails.
Oh, I thought for sure you were a camera on kind of gal.
I do keep but if I turn it off, it's because I'm either eating, like trying to shove food down in between like a question, or I'm cleaning my nails.
I think this also speaks to the fact that you're very direct and honest and open. So like if your mic's unmuted, you're just going to say what you've been saying anyway.
Oh yeah, there's no difference.
That's how I interpret that.
Yeah, there's no difference. On mic, off mic, same thing.
Would you rather start a podcast in the early aughts or in the present day?
What a good question. Early aughts. I think I would have liked to have started a podcast then. Because we weren't really getting into like long form at that time. Like it could have been an opportunity for us to like really get into some thoughtful questions.
100% agree. Emily, thank you for being here. Congrats on season 5 of She Pivots. We're going to put all the information in our show notes about where our listeners can tune in. Do you have any goals with the podcast for the year that you haven't done historically? Like, are you thinking of new ways to push things, new guests, anything like that?
You know, it's funny. It's actually consistency is what I'm aiming for, is that I really want to keep our level of conversation really high as the show has gotten better known. The volume of pitches that we have is obviously quite large, and some of them people that I know that it's sad to say no to them.
Speaking of, and we haven't talked about this, I just want to plug some notable guests that you've had, please. Including Vice President Kamala Harris, Vanessa Hudgens, Priyanka Chopra Jonas, Ilana Glazer, Shay Mitchell, Bobby Brown, Brooke Shields, Fran Drescher. The list goes.
Sally Christensen.
The list goes on and on and on, though. The caliber of conversation that you're having is so good. And sorry if I'm like just really repeating myself, but it's excellent. And there just aren't enough podcasts that are showcasing women in career, women just on the front lines. So like I recommend it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for
Sally.
Everything.
This is so great.
Thanks for listening to Work Friends, a podcast from Argent. Listen and follow on all podcast platforms. Subscribe to the Argent YouTube channel for more clips and bonus content. And follow us on Instagram @Argent for all the latest. And before you go, don't forget to give us a 5-star rating and leave a comment. It means so much to us. I'm Sally Christensen, and we'll see you next time.
Work Friends.
Work Friends is produced by Gina Marinelli with editing by Ryan Woldoff. Our theme music is by Karina DePiano and Melanie Naima. This episode was recorded at Podstream Studios in New York, New York.